Which in 1 week?
Yeah.
I
No
think
idea what happened.
you know what? I have friends that like literally say some of the worst shit on the planet, and they haven't got me banned. So that's impressive, Max.
Aren't there Nazis on here, Max?
Yeah, you're worse than a Nazi right now.
I guess so. We're gonna talk about skinheads in this podcast, but apparently not Twitch skinheads. I don't know.
You can talk about Twitch skinheads. Hey guys, welcome to My Brain is Hanging Upside Down. My name is Crook Irish. You probably know me from things like the Stone Gauntlet or any of these Twitch streams. My uh business partner Max approached me with a really cool idea about doing a deep dive into music and the culture that kind of inspired it per band. And I thought that that was a great idea for a podcast, so I'm going to be here supporting the channel uh, on my channel. You'll see it here every other Sunday, I think would be a good time. But basically, Max has a great. Well, I'll let you tell him himself. You'll be hosted today by Maxwell Murder.
Yeah. Okay. My name's Max. We'll go by Maxwell Murder because it's a fucking awesome song by Rancid, and Rancid's a great band. But we're not talking about Rancid today. We're talking about Operation Ivy, and I'll just give you some background. The first punk song I ever heard was Sound System off of their LP, Energy, and it changed my fucking life. I was 12 years old, and it was on a mixtape that my babysitter gave me. Sarah Middleton, Sarah Davis, I'll give her a shout out. Um, she got me into a lot of music. She also taught me how to sing harmonies to Billy Joel's greatest hits, which is pretty awesome. She was the best babysitter on the planet. But yeah, I worked in the music industry for um, a period of time that I don't remember a lot of. My I moved to LA when I was 18 and needed a job and took a job at a major record label, sort of begrudgingly. I was dating the GM's daughter at the time, so it was kind of a clincher. Um, but it changed my life. It was a great fucking. I learned so much about music because all I knew about at that time was punk rock. And if you look behind me, I actually do have a gold record, and it's one of my prized possessions because I worked really hard on that album. I have another one for My Chemical Romance, The Black Parade, but it was damaged in a move, and you know, whatever. But that's my story. I work in information security now, but I still love punk rock. Uh, I took a hiatus. I'm playing guitar for a while, but I'm back in it, and I I can play a lot of bar chords and power chords.
Awesome,
And,
thank you, Max.
and yeah,
We are also joined today by Max's co-host Nick,
my
or
cousin too.
his cousin,
Yeah,
or Doctor
Doctor
Yeah,
Nick. Doctor
Doctor
Nick.
Nick. Come on, get it right.
that's
Oh,
right. Yeah, it's technically, I mean, Lord Doctor would work too. I don't have a sir yet, but yeah, no, I'm Max's first cousin. It's fun to be here for this also, just because it's like Max is who got me into punk rock when I was 12. So that the torch came from. I didn't realize it came from your babysitter.
Pass it on, man. You pass it on.
Yeah, and I think actually it was Rancid, which is so Op Ivy adjacent. That
It is, yeah.
that was my first. I think you gave me an Outcome the Wolves, which was probably pretty new at that time.
I actually remember this. I gave you 3 CDs.
Okay.
Out Come the Wolves, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, I can't remember the name of it, and the Vandals.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get as into Boss Tones ever. I was less on the ska side of things than the punk side of things. Maybe we'll discuss that today since we're talking about Op Ivy.
Yeah, exactly.
Regrettably, I've seen Rancid and I've seen the Vandals in concert. I'd never, got to see Op Ivy, obviously, because it was before my time. But
we're both too young, man.
Yeah. There's people who were just older than us who did.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, which disappoints me. So,
Oh, I'm supposed to introduce who I am real quick.
yeah. Introduce who you
Okay,
are.
I'm an amateur guitar player who has been playing guitars in
Nick is
many punk bands, and both some good that you've never heard of and some shitty that you've never heard of, and I've been playing in them for a really long time.
I thought that the Urban Achievers were the next Beatles, Nick.
That's what Adam's dad used to say all the time.
I know.
And I do have I don't have a gold record like you, although I should have put my wife has one, so I could have put one of hers up.
Well, yeah. Well, she's
but I did.
talented. Mine's from marketing, so I mean, shit.
I have no awards of any kind for any music exploits I've ever had in my life. But I have, I went to UC Berkeley and played in shitty punk bands in the East Bay for 4 years. So I do have the little tiny bit of street cred from having showed up a decade late to a scene that was no longer existent, but very excitedly. Okay, a scene that was very different from what the scene that was in my head in 2003 when I showed up was not what it had been in the early 90s.
You got to give Gilman Street credit because they're still a collective. I honestly you don't.
It felt
here.
We only played Gilman. I've only played Gilman once, but it did feel like a bit of history. Like I'm from LA, and I saw more shows at the Troubadour than I saw shows anywhere else.
It's different.
I've never played the Troubadour, but I feel like it would be like playing Gilman was kind of like if I got to play the Troub. You'd be like that was. Yeah. This is a stage that I've heard about more than I've played on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you played on the same stage as Operation Ivy, Green Day, Rancid, Crimpshrine, Sewer Trout, like a lot of great bands.
Sewer Trout was new to me, but I was listening to it just before we started this podcast, and I was very into it.
I love Sewer Trout. They just as a tangent, unfortunately, their lead singer committed suicide in the 90s. But they were an early Gilman Street, Berkeley punk band, and their songs are all about the politics of the time, which means like the Iran-Contra scandal, George H.W. Bush, and Reagan, which I love.
It was also just, this is another podcast framing thing. Look at what kind of guest I am. I feel like you're pretty like for you, music and politics seem to be on your mind in equal parts, maybe even, and just like you talking about the Ramones song about Reagan visiting the grave of SS soldiers or whatever. And
I'm gonna get into that in a second.
But that's spoiling too much. It's just like, it's interesting because like Up Ivy, I mean, obviously there's politics too, but I think of them as not. I mean, Unity
they're a dance band. They call themselves a dance band.
Okay, I like that. They're a dance band. I like songs like Sound System or whatever, or like songs that are about, they're not as like overtly political as a lot of stuff that came out of that, I feel like.
I think that was part of their success. But okay, so that's a good segue. I'm going to just mention, so people might be wondering what the name of the podcast is. So my absolute favorite Ramones song is Bonzo Goes to Bitburg, subtitled My Brain is Hanging Upside Down. And it's about a particular political faux pas that President Ronald Reagan pulled when he was in office. He took a trip to Germany, and I think he literally had tea at a place called Bitburg, which was a concentration camp, without really making any reference to the fact that it was a concentration camp. And the story is that Joey Ramone watched it on TV, got really pissed, and wrote a song about it, and then Tommy wrote the music. And if you listen to it, it is definitely the Ramones more. It's a more musically ambitious song for them. It's got some like, I don't even know what the music, like a glockenspiel or something in it, and it's more than 4 chords, and Tommy was a better sort of songwriter than anybody else. And Johnny hated the song because, and Johnny and Joey didn't speak. They toured for 30 plus years, didn't say a word to each other. Every year they'd go on Howard Stern. Howard would try to get them to talk. They would only talk to Howard as an intermediary. They hated each other. Uh, in fact, the KKK Took My Baby Away is about Johnny Ramone taking Joey's lady away, and the KKK is Johnny.
And drama.
Yes.
Nothing beats it.
Nothing beats it. So the song, Joey wasn't a big Reagan fan, but Johnny was. So, like, these songs, like, kind of got written by the Ramones. Johnny would begrudgingly play them because he had nothing else to do. And but
once you're a Ramone, what are you gonna do besides playing the Ramones?
Exactly. You changed your name. What are you gonna do? So yeah, it's my favorite Ramones song ever. I fucking love it. I'll listen to any cover of it. I will listen to any version of it live, whatever. So I thought it was a good name for the podcast, just the subtitle, My Brain is Hanging Upside Down, and for short, Upside Down Brain, because I want you guys to feel like we're going to blow your minds and turn your brains upside down.
Here's a piece of practical Ramones advice. Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
One of the first shows that the band I was in Berkeley played, the Urban Achievers, we played a show at a frat party, and we covered "I Want to Be Sedated" because we were trying to go for the, like, what are people already gonna? It's a frat party, you know?
It's an easy song.
Yes, it is. That was part of our decision. We could learn this. We already know it. Like, whatever. We don't have to practice this. We can play, even though we were all brand new. We were 18. If you cover "I Want to Be Sedated," you got to speed it up a lot, because
oh my god,
if it turns out if you play that song at the speed that it is, like, on the record, you're gonna be there. You're gonna be standing there playing the same 2 chords for 4.5 minutes, and it will be. And also, your band sucks. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Most bands probably suck, and if you're covering "I Want to Be Sedated," you definitely suck. And so it's we sucked. And you don't want to suck for 4.5 minutes of slow Ramones cover.
So there's also a reason I don't listen to any of their LPs. I don't listen to their live stuff because they speed it up.
Oh yeah, you got to speed it way up. Way up.
The other thing to know, and just a fun fact about Johnny and his guitar playing, a lot of people think he played just straight up power chords. He only played bar chords. He was actually better than people think he was. He only downstroked, but he played full bar chords.
He's playing, like, really, really fast because he's not doing any upstroke.
He's literally going like, here, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make a bar chord. He's just going like that.
That sounded right.
That's Johnny Ramone. Yeah. So let's get back on track. I have a document. Hold on. So I love that song. I love the politics behind it. Please go look it up. There's a whole Wikipedia page about just that song. And I love that fucking Wikipedia page. It's great. I've looked at it a couple of times. But let's jump into the East Bay scene. Let's jump into Op Ivy. Let's jump into, like, I think let's just start out with the members of the band. And I'll say that,
okay.
So we've got Jesse Michaels on vocals. We've got Tim Armstrong, the illustrious Grammy Award-winning Tim Armstrong, on guitar and vocals. He did some vocals. we have one of the most talented bass players who ever lived, Matt Friedman on bass. And then on drums, we got a guy named Dave Mello, who still, I think, might live on Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley. I don't know. But
a lot of people never leave.
Yeah, exactly. But when the band formed, so
how old were they?
How old?
When they formed?
16.
Yeah.
16. I think so. So basically, the way it happened was the scene was such that Gilman had been open. 924 Gilman Street was the main venue in Berkeley, right?
Yeah.
And it again, we mentioned it before. It's a collective, which I love. I love that it's not run by, it's not CBGB's, it's not the Troubadour, it's not the 930 Club in DC.
Is it collectively owned, like by the people who work there and stuff?
Yeah, and
Berkeley has a lot of businesses like that, restaurants and stuff, and it's always a really cool
and
like, vibe.
They rotate out sort of chairmen and chairwomen, and they're voted in. But you can show up at Gilman Street. I think it's every like third or fourth. It's two days a month. They have a meeting. Anyone can show up. Anyone can say whatever the fuck they want to, as long as it's not racist, sexist, homophobic. I think you could probably say that too and just get kicked out. Yeah. But you can show up and be like, you know what? I think we should book certain bands, and that's kind of how the scene built. Like in the 80s and the 90s, you could go to Gilman and see a variety of shit. It wasn't just punk rock. They even did plays there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, actually, there's in the Turn It Around documentary. There's a little part about how a woman decided that she wanted to do a play, and they were like, okay, and they've done that since.
Interesting about the collective. Oh, sorry. The collective like sense of it is like, because I was already talking about like in LA we had places like the Troubadour, or places that there was like a personality behind it, like Doug, what's his name? Doug, fuck. It's Doug, whatever his name is Troubadour. It's on the fucking sign.
Yeah. I know who you're talking. The guy who runs the Troubadour, basically.
Yeah, but but there's not like some legendary producer that I can think of associated with the East Bay scene. Am I like, it really feels like it was very much from the ground up, and like just the bands and the fans and with nobody else. Well,
yeah, actually, so like basically there was a guy named Tim Johann who kind of, so
Doug Weston, Troubadour.
Doug Weston, that's right. So okay, so backstory, in the 70s, you had a guy named Billy Graham. Was it Billy Graham? The hippie promoter from San Francisco. Okay. He promoted a lot of like hippie stuff in the 60s and 70s, and he was a legend. And he made a lot of money off of it. He ripped off a lot of bands. Tim Johann kind of had the same sort of background, but he hated Bill Graham. For some reason, my fucking Siri keeps opening. Stop it. But Tim Johann kind of started Maximum Rock and Roll, right?
Okay.
And Maximum Rock and Roll was it was a radio show on KPFA, which was a local public radio station I grew up listening to KPFA when I was a kid, because I grew up in Northern California. Nick grew up in LA, but we spent summers and all those times together. But he had Maximum Rock and Roll. Yeah, and then we switched. Yeah. I moved to LA and you went to Berkeley. So Tim Johann kind of he gave everyone he kind of was like, Gilman Street is available. I'm going to give this place I'm going to give the kids a place to go. And what ended up happening very quickly was like, he was like the dad telling these kids to stop being so rowdy, and then the kids threw a fucking revolt.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and kind of I remember this from being a teenager because I went to Gilman shows like a lot, and the pits were, because there's no violence, right? The pits were different. Like either there'd be like Silly String or like I actually remember a band. I don't remember the name. Oh, I think it was maybe the Lincolns. I can't remember. But a band brought a bunch of fucking canned dog food, and that got thrown into the pit. It was disgusting, but like that was the kind of stuff that you could expect from Gilman Street in the '90s, and in the '80s too, like before the time. Um, so it was a lot of fun. But sort of back to Operation Ivy.
Yeah.
They formed. All those guys were in different bands, and basically, uh, uh, the story is 1982, year I was born. Tim met Jesse. They were like young, and uh, Jesse went on. Tim was in a band called Contemplations of Death. Jesse was in a band called SAD. Jesse went off to Pittsburgh for a while, then came back, and they started the band Operation Ivy in 1987, early 1987, and they they brought something different to the scene. The scene up until then had been um, a lot of like people who were influenced by the Ramones, and um, in Operation Ivy, uh, you can really hear that they're influenced more by like the Clash or a lot of second wave ska,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So they were different, and they also brought a different sort of a level of musicianship that other bands didn't have. Because Tim was a real songwriter. Even at 17, he was a real songwriter. Uh, Again, Matt Friedman, even then, was an amazing bass player. I was listening to the records recently, or the record and the rarities, and their rhythm section was fucking tight. And
It always boggles my mind listening to them how fully formed, like they sound like the most mature, fully formed band,
right,
and that they did that as teenagers when it was like it feels like they invented an entire new sound. Like I can't think of anything that was doing ska punk like
yeah,
that before them.
yeah. Well, the song, even that, we'll get into this in the songs a little
Yeah.
bit later. But the song Unity was all about like the sort of tribes. There were disparate tribes. There was like the guys who like ska, the rude boys, and then the punks, and then the crust punks, and the fucking metal guys, and like all these people. The song Unity was about all those people uniting against the Nazi skinheads, because there was a Nazi skinhead problem in Northern California. There still is. It was when I was a kid. It's fucked up. But when I listen to the song,
Is that why the their Operation Ivy, because like the actual Operation Ivy wasn't that kind of like to defeat the Nazis?
no, actually, we were going to talk about that too.
This is interesting.
Operation Ivy was code name for nuclear testing in the Marshall Islands. It was the second nuclear test in the Marshall Islands, and they like to name these things shit like that. There's a movie about it that's basically just footage
So that was actually after World War II.
It was after World War II. Yeah, it was in the 50s. There's a claim that there was a UFO sighting at that test. So, but yeah, that's where they got the name from. A lot of people don't know that.
I knew it was something with nuclear something.
Yeah. I don't know if you can. What's the documentary that's basically just a bunch of nukes going off and H bombs and shit? I can't remember, but they show actually that test. That was where they got the name. Again, 17-year-olds. I love the idea that 17-year-olds were like smart enough, and these kids weren't even from like Berkeley. Like I want to sort of also draw a sort of distinction between the bands that played in the scene and the hippies that went to UC Berkeley in the generation before them,
Uh-huh.
because those were all people that weren't from the Bay Area. They went to UC Berkeley for college. These guys were from like Benicia and Albany, California, and Petaluma, Santa Rosa, where I come from. Like they were townies. They were hicks, but like uh, they're I remember being a kid and walking down the street and like good chance that someone would scream the F word at me, the FA word, at me like every day, or throw something at me, whatever. But that's what these guys grew up with. So like, but yeah, but like back to the songs. I was listening to the songs, and Matt's playing really pulls. It's like he pulls the band. Like if he's not there, the band doesn't gel. Like he really pulls the songs along,
Yeah.
and it's really amazing. And it's it's the type of like maturity in like musical maturity that you don't, like you said, you don't see that. They're 17, they created a new sound. And he had such him and Tim had such a range that if you listen to Energy, like it's got a lot of different, like not all the songs sound the same. It's got some ska songs, it's got some sped up punk ska songs, it's got some straight up hardcore songs, it's got some like thrash punk, like some street punk. Like it is a sampling of the punk rock at the time. And it all, Matt Friedman loves ska, Tim loves like first wave, like reggae type ska. Jesse described himself as just a spaz. And Dave Mello is actually a really good drummer. He just didn't really go on to anything after that. But they basically the song the LP Energy was the best recorded, best sound, sort of best of the best on Lookout Records, which was the record label that put out all this stuff. And I fully, like, again, it was the first, they got me into punk rock. I still listen to them today at the age of 40.
I was gonna say that too. I was like, those songs hold up in a way that, like, and you can revisit them. I mean, maybe like what stands out to me about the songs that are on Energy are like all the songs are fucking real short. Like,
Yeah,
they don't. There are no 4-minute songs.
Take Warning is actually kind of long.
It's under 3 minutes.
Yeah, but it's long for
it's long band. For Ivy because some of those songs are literally 1 minute songs.
Dude, I think
how long could Bombshell be?
30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean it's like these are songs that, but by the way, Bombshell, which has like
I love that song.
Incredible bass line, which like when you play Bombshell in your head, I think you hear a lot of that, like those like long bluesy runs.
Yeah.
That he's doing in the middle of that song, and it's like that shit's great, and it has this kind of like legend, like the album has, or EP or whatever you want to call it, like
it's an LP.
It has like a legendary feel to it, where it's like this. Maybe also just because it's like there weren't other. It's not like they were around forever, so it's like Operation Ivy comes out. It's like this is Operation Ivy. It's all here. It's less than 40 minutes of it, and it's all great, and then that's it.
Exactly. Well, and when they broke up, so they were together for approximately 3 years, so 87 to I think the end of 89, and they start, they're kids. They didn't care about making money off of anything. What ended up happening is they played Gilman constantly, got a huge following, and they were the first band on Lookout to do a full U.S. tour. And a woman named Kamala Parks, who worked for Lookout, and she was in some bands, and she's still involved with Gilman. She's awesome. I love Kamala. She kind of pioneered the DIY punk booking like aspect. Yeah. And they went on tour in a 69 Newport with a constructed wooden box on top for their equipment. And there was 4 guys in the band and a roadie. So that's 5 guys in a fucking 69 Newport dry. They went from coast to coast. You can look it up on YouTube. There's some great shows from Jersey. And
who's writing the Tim Armstrong biopic that chronicles this?
Oh man, I don't care, but I'd like to star in it. Tim, just to sidetrack just like a little bit, I'm gonna try not to do this a lot because I do it all the time, but
well, I'm gonna be not helpful because all I'm gonna want to do is sidetrack.
Me and you are like that, but so Tim is a true artist. Tim is he's a songwriter. He's also, if you go on his Instagram, he has some beautiful visual art. Like he is a true, yeah, he is a true artist. I had the greatest pleasure of meeting Rancid and Tim and Matt when I worked at Warner Brothers, and it was probably one of the best experiences of my life because I got to tell him, "You changed my life."
That's cool.
And you know, people say don't meet your heroes, you know, whatever, don't meet your idols.
Yeah.
He was the most gracious, fucking cool guy, and Matt and Lars too were the most like down to earth, nice dudes. And we talked about the Bay Area. That was what we talked about. They asked me what high school I would have gone to. Like I went to, and I was like, oh, I would have gone to Santa Rosa High, but I didn't. And like, they knew all that shit. They knew all of, like, it was great. And like, you know, I told them about, I used to hitchhike or fucking bum rides to Gilman, or I'd take the bus. The bus to fucking Berkeley from Santa Rosa is a 2.5-hour ride.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and I do that and just to see bands there, because there was another theater in Petaluma called the Phoenix Theater, which was closer, but it didn't have the feel.
Right.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember I don't know. I don't think I ever played there, but I feel like I went to a show or two.
You probably did. It was the bastard stepchild of Gilman Street. It had a bigger capacity and a better sound system, but it was privately run. They're kind of assholes. But you could go to Gilman during the day, and they had quarter pipes set up on the sides of the walls, so you could skate in there. And it was Phoenix Theater had the same thing, but like, I would fucking if there was a band I wanted to see, I'd get out there during the day and I'd chill all day, skateboard, maybe drink a little 40 malt liquor in the back, and then see the band, and then I'd either bum a ride home, I'd stay with a friend. I had some friends there. A couple of times slept on a bench in the UC Berkeley quad.
Yep.
Kept warm by a crust punk girl a couple of times, you know. But that was my fucking teenage years, and you know, I missed Operation Ivy, but I feel like I didn't miss the scene, and I'm eternally grateful. I hated growing up there. I hate that fucking area, but I am eternally grateful for that being my punk scene, because it was progressive.
Max.
Yeah.
Josh asks, did you go to Gilman before Green Day blew up?
Yes, actually I did. Well, actually, no, okay. I saw them at the Phoenix Theater before they blew up. I never saw them at Gilman before they blew up. I did see them at Gilman after Dookie, but I saw them on the Kerplunk tour at the Phoenix Theater.
I feel like I just like my whole going to the Bay Area feels like I just missed a lot of this stuff because like
yeah,
I got into I was 12 or I think I was 12 when Dookie came out, and so
Yeah.
that was like Green Day was already like
big.
suddenly punk, like it felt like a big thing. It was like suddenly punk rock was this thing that everyone
Yeah.
was paying attention to in mainstream culture. And by the time I got to Berkeley years later, like
It was 2003. It was already being
2000
gentrified.
yeah, 2003 was there was a lot of gentrification, and I went to I was radical, like leftist anarch, like everything was about protesting the war in, or like the invasion of Iraq was in 2003. That was the main thing, and like I wanted to go to Berkeley because of the history of the anti-war movement, and like I was into punk rock, and like I kind of felt like, and maybe this is on me for not finding it, but I felt like I showed up in Berkeley and found neither, like a thriving punk rock or anti-war scene, and like struggled to find both those things, and was frustrated by it.
I can see that.
Max, Josh has a follow-up question.
Yeah, what's that?
He said nice before Trey joined on drums.
Oh yeah, so I didn't see them before Trey joined on drums. So Trey was on drums during Kerplunk, but for a long time, Green Day was in a sort of Spinal Tap situation where they had drummers that kind of came and went and maybe like spontaneously combusted, and then and then Trey Cool showed up and like they clicked. And Trey is younger than all of them. He actually grew up in where I grew up, Sonoma County, like out in the sticks, on the same hill as Larry Livermore, and that's how Trey Cool got sort of pushed into the scene. But he's younger than Billy Joe and Matt, and but he was a very precocious child who liked to bang on things. And one thing, and I'll just say one thing I like about Green Day, and they have this in common with Operation Ivy, is a fucking tight rhythm section. Like, and if you watch Trey Cool play drums, he has the most minimal kit. He's got like a snare, like a tom, a hi-hat, a bass, and a cymbal. That's it. That dude does a lot with nothing. And then Billy Joe Armstrong is a great guitarist. Billy Joe Armstrong almost ended up in Rancid, literally. Like the second guitarist in Rancid is Lars Fredriksson, and the first show they played, they ended up playing with fucking Billy Joe Armstrong on guitar. So like we might not have even had Green Day. Like they were close to that. But hold on, I get back on track. I've got a whole paper. So basically, they went on tour. They went on this U.S. tour, and they had a great time. You know, came back and decided to record an LP. They had written enough songs. They had actually written a lot of songs at this point. They had about a catalog of 45 songs. Not all of them ended up on the LP, but they come back from the tour. They record this LP, and if you listen to it, like I said, it's a 4-piece band. You've got a singer who doesn't play an instrument. You listen to the album, most of the songs have 2 guitar tracks. And that is the beginning of Tim Armstrong becoming very good at production and very good at orchestration. Again, he's won Grammys now. He produced, like, if you look him up, he's produced shit that you wouldn't even, Pink, and
now he's just like everywhere.
Yeah, he's again, it's super talented. He's a true artist. But but yeah, like his start on all of that was like he orchestrated all of the songs on, like, so Jesse wrote a lot of the lyrics, and then basically Matt and Tim put it together.
So what happened that Matt and Tim went one way, and what happened to Jesse?
Okay, so here's what happened. They recorded the LP. The LP became the most popular, the highest selling album on Lookout ever. It didn't go gold yet, but it was very, very successful for that type of record label.
Mm-hmm.
It went gold after Rancid and Out Come the Wolves came out.
Ah.
Yeah, but so they recorded the album, and they came back to Berkeley after this awesome tour, and the story goes, this is straight from Tim's mouth. Him and Jesse took a trip down to the pier, sort of under the Bay Bridge, in I think Jesse's van, and they had some beers and they talked about it, and they're like, it's not the same. It's not what it used to be. You know, they played backyard shows to 200 kids. They played Gilman Street to under capacity, which is like, 700 kids. To when they got back, playing to, they couldn't do the backyard shows anymore because 2,000 kids would show up. They would double capacity at Gilman, and they just, they were kids. They weren't in it for a major record deal. They weren't in it for anything except to have a good time and play good music. And they broke up. And you know, it it didn't just happen where Matt and Tim went and formed Rancid. Matt and Tim have been best friends since Little League in Albany, California. They have known each other since they were young. When Operation Ivy broke up, they did one last show at Gilman. It was, they couldn't, the door people couldn't control how many people got in. It was fucking packed. I've heard stories about it. There's a bootleg and an official album called Lint Rides Again, because Tim went by Lint at the time. That was their official last show. And a lot of people didn't believe it because a lot of bands would pull that shit,
Right.
Like the Ramones did it, I think, yearly for the last 30 years of their fucking careers. But their real last show was a backyard show the day after. And by all accounts, everyone says that was the real last show. That was the real goodbye. It was only to about 300 people, and like, just from what I've heard, all this stuff, Tim was so drunk he could barely stand up. They actually had to kind of like prop him up so he could play guitar, and that's a foreshadowing of what happened after Operation Ivy to him. Operation Ivy ended. Jesse Michaels went on to form a band called Common Rider, which has he made a couple of albums, 2 good songs. And then Tim played in about 3 or 4 bands after that, but his drinking was such that he ran him into the ground. And because they've got Tim Armstrong. He's this like great songwriter. He's Operation Ivy. He's like pushing. He's kind of the guy, but his drinking was bad. He started using drugs, like hard drugs, and you can hear it. There's a song about it on their first album. It's they have 2 self-titled albums, but the first self-titled Rancid album, it's called Rats in the Hallway, and it's about Tim basically living in this apartment above a liquor store and being introduced to junk by a girl, like a woman, and being a heroin addict. Tim ended up
It's another song, just to interject. Another song where when you think about the song in your head, I don't know about you, I hear the bass line.
I do too. Yeah, absolutely.
That really, really fast.
Yeah.
Very rhythmic. Matt Freeman playing.
That album was like he perfected his sound there. But if you listen to the lyrics, it's fucked up. And the story goes that Tim had ruined so many bands, alienated so many people, including his best friend Matt Friedman, and ended up living in the Salvation Army in downtown Oakland. I have been there. I've seen that. It is not pretty. it is the it is it is like one of the lowest rung sort of recovery programs that you can think of. But he lived there for a year, and he had been sober. He hadn't been drinking for a couple of months. And he hit up his best friend Matt. Matt would still take his calls. Nobody else would take his calls. Well, Larry Livermore wouldn't take his calls. Billy Joe Armstrong wouldn't take his calls. Billy Joe Armstrong actually wrote a lot of Rancid songs with them, but he wouldn't take his call. He wouldn't take Tim's calls. And Tim said to Matt, "I want to play. I miss doing this." And Matt was like, "You're not going to ruin another band for me. Like, you're not going to ruin this again for me. We can rehearse. If you stay sober for a year, we'll start a band." And Tim lived at the Salvation Army for a year, stayed sober for a year, and they started Rancid.
Wow.
Yeah. And the story with Lars is so Lars is not credited on the first album, but he played on the first album. And the story that Matt tells is that Tim wanted a second guitarist. So they played a show at Gilman and invited Billy Joe Armstrong to play as his rhythm guitar. And it was awesome. It was a great show. If you think that's like an all-star fucking punk rock lineup. And they wanted Billy Joe, and he was like, I got this other band. It's called Green Day. And so Tim knew Lars kind of from recovery, but Lars was still drinking. And the story that Matt tells was Tim invited Lars over to this kind of get together with some friends and stuff. And Matt says Lars proceeded to get drunk and insult everybody in the room. And he's like, "You want this guy to be in our fucking band?" And Tim was like, "He's a really good guy. He's a really good guitar player. He's just an alcoholic." And and Matt's like, "Another one? Really?" But they kind of made the same deal. They were like, "Look, you want to be in the band? You've heard the demos. You like the demos. You can't drink." So that's how they ended up with two guitars. And Lars is actually a really good rhythm guitar player. And Tim, when you see him live, I think he strums the guitar maybe like 5 times. he's a dancer. He's a dancer. The other reason for that is that he's a lefty, and he plays a Gretsch guitar that is a right-handed guitar, and he hasn't in the fucking decades that he's played, he hasn't changed the peg. So when he plays, the peg is down here. And that's why when you watch him play, the guitar goes like this a lot. Like a lot.
Of all the things not to change, he hasn't just changed where the fucking strap holds on the guitar.
Well, he also learned how to play guitar upside down, kind of like Hendrix.
Yeah, yeah. But my father-in-law, who's an incredible session guitarist, and has played session music with all the greats, and is like, talk about people who have gone like uncredited but actually played all the guitars on albums that you've heard.
Absolutely, yeah. Your father-in-law is that guy.
Yeah, he's that guy. Yeah. And not so much in the world of punk, but in prog. Like you could put on it. There's a couple of Yes albums where it's just him playing all the guitars. Like,
oh yeah.
I'll go over to his studio, and it's the ultimate nightmare because he has this incredible collection of guitars, and they're all left-handed.
And here's the thing, like, so I didn't know this. I'm self-taught. I'm also, again, Nick is a lot more talented than I am when it comes to guitar and music. But I didn't know this, but most guitar instructors will insist, even if you're a lefty, to play right-handed, because really you're doing two things, right? You've got two hands. It doesn't matter. But people like Hendrix, people like your father-in-law, Tim, they just learned how to play upside down. Tim strings his guitars right now, though. I think mainly because he he's at the point where he has 2 signature guitars with 2 different companies, Fender and
Wow.
Gretsch. Yeah, so he can string guitars however the fuck he wants.
Yeah, no one's gonna tell Tim Armstrong how to string a guitar.
Yeah, but it is funny. I love seeing him live because like he plays the same Gretsch. It's a Baldwin era 70s Gretsch, and people
Yeah.
hate the Baldwin era Gretches. He doesn't give a fuck.
The only time I got to see Rancid live, it was with the Distillers and AFI. AFI, who was another one of those Gilman bands, right?
Yeah, AFI is a Gilman band. AFI is a great band.
Yeah, and
they were
even-
more my time. So
yeah, even in the 2000s, like Davey Havoc was always just hanging out in Berkeley.
There's an amazing YouTube video of Davey Havoc coming out on stage with Rancid singing Radio.
Yeah, I bet.
It's really good. But yeah, Tim Armstrong's playing. It's just, left-handed. It's the strangest thing. And of all the things not to change, the fucking peg.
Right.
But actually, if you look at pictures of him from Operation Ivy, he was a real skinny kid. You look at pictures of him now, he's got some fucking guns. And I really think it's because he's got this heavy, hollow body Gretsch that he has to hold up.
He plays a hollow body.
Yeah, he plays the same style hollow body that I do.
That's so interesting. Like with that much distortion on it, I always like a solid body. But that's just me.
I'll tell you his setup.
Okay.
It's a very custom. So he's got 2 humbuckers on there. But the switch, he only plays the bridge only the bridge humbucker pickup is working. The switch, he has it set up so that in the top 2 positions, it's off.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he doesn't even bother with the neck pickup. It's not even wired. So like you'll see him, he'll play and he'll fucking flick the switch and it's just dead. And that
It's a kill switch.
Yeah, it's just what he likes to do. Here, hold on. I'm just gonna pick up. This is my acoustic. I'm gonna pick up my hollow body Gretsch so everyone can see what he plays.
Hey, Max.
Yeah.
Jay Gazes has another question for you.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Do you ever get feedback issues when playing a distorted hollow body?
Yeah,
Well,
that's my question too.
I was about to get to that. The secret is styrofoam. Okay, so this is a hollow body Gretsch. Very similar to it's not a Baldwin era. This is a new one. It's a Streamline. It's their sort of like it's made in China. It's their Gretsch guitars are kind of expensive, but this is their sort of like cheaper one. It's still an amazing guitar. I mean, look at that fucking bridge right there. It's beautiful. If you're playing something with a lot of distortion, you basically put styrofoam where you need to put it. But Tim has said that, so a lot of people speculate, and he said a couple of different things. He said he uses styrofoam, but he's also contradicted himself and said that he's never had hum issues. So I don't know. I play this heavily distorted, and I don't have any hum issues. But I play it like Tim. I only use the bridge pickup.
Interesting.
And I will say that you have to finger it, like you have to actually, like, if you don't want hum, you got to have really strong hands. If that makes sense. Like you got to really fucking, like, you cannot, if you got a bar, it's got to be like solid. Otherwise you get hum.
I imagine it also depends on how thick your strings are.
Oh yeah, I use I can't remember the brand, but I use pretty thick strings. I also use Dunlop picks that are kind of flimsy. They're not really strong. I don't know if that helps, but it seems to work for me. But I was just playing some pretty heavy distorted stuff like earlier today, day before, And
I got a funny Dunlop story. You want to hear it?
yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of tangents, here's one.
Yeah.
So when I was 15, I was in London for the summer because that's where my mom lived.
Yeah.
And I found like there was this really cool music store like off of some little road, off of some little road, off of some little road. And I was like just in there like looking at guitars and shit, and then they had these really cool picks, and like I found one that felt perfect for my hand, and I thought I was like, this was before hipster was a term, but I was like, this is cool. I'm gonna get these picks from London and bring them back to LA, and I'll be the only one who has these of anyone and they were Dunlop picks. I just had never heard of Dunlop or whatever. I just had whatever the fuck picks I had. So I like bought like a case of Dunlop picks, and everyone was like, yeah, you could get those at Guitar Center on Sunset.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
I
Well, these came from a fucking little shop in London, so fuck you.
I had ordered these by the bag from Amazon, but okay. So we're like running way late. So let's jump into the songs. There's a few songs I want to discuss.
Okay.
And let's start off with Hedgecore. Nick, have you heard Hedgecore?
Which one is that?
It's
Why
not
does
on
that
the
not ring a bell?
it's not on the LP. It's on the Hectic EP.
Oh. Probably heard it, but I don't know it.
Okay. It's a song about a sport that I don't know if you played when you were at UC Berkeley, but I played it when I went to shows. After shows, you might be a little tipsy,
Yeah.
and you might be a little pumped up, and you might be with your friends, and you might notice that Berkeley has a lot of hedges.
It does have a lot of hedges.
It does. And hedgecore is a sport where you either run or skate very fast at a hedge and jump into it.
You know, I didn't know there was a name for. I mean, I've obviously played this sport.
I think you have.
At an amateur level, in a lot of different variations.
Operation Ivy wrote a whole song about it.
I did not know that.
And I wish we could play it. There's copyright issues, but some of the lines I'll just go hedgecore, hedge night, anarchy night every night of the year. That's fucking hedgecore. Hold on. And it's one of my favorite songs, but it is one of those songs before they had any production that like mattered. It's just got the one guitar track. It just got Tim going. And again, it's also, Matt is pulling the band along. It's too bad we can't play it. I could play it. I don't think I remember how. It's pretty simple. Sounds good on an acoustic. Sounds good electric. It's a great song. It's a great sport. So we'll move on. We'll move on to some other stuff. The song Unity, Nick. You know that song.
Yeah.
So the impetus for that was the Nazi problem, right? So
yeah, I didn't realize that there was like a specific what we're united against. I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time with the lyrics booklet.
Well, here's the thing: the lyrics only, they don't like specifically say like "fuck you, skinheads." But if you listen to them, there's a lot of like unity as one stands together, unity, evolution, gotta go. So like they're talking about evolution of human society as a people, and how like basically like you've got these disparate tribes that Op Ivy brought together, ska kids, punk kids, kind of funky kids, spazzes, whatever. And the idea of unity was to kind of just say like, you know what, like all of us are cool, but every time we see these fucking skinheads at our shows doing sig hails in the pit and beating up people that are smaller than them, we should do something about it. And in the Turn It Around documentary, they talk about when they did something about it. I'll just say that there were two occurrences that happened years apart and miles apart that were very similar. One at the Gilman Street Theater in the 80s and one at the Phoenix Theater in the 90s. But the story goes they had the skinhead problem. There was a band playing that had a song that was anti-skinhead. I think it was actually called Skinhead, and they went through each letter of the word and just, S because you suck, that kind of. So the skinheads were going to show up and like wreak havoc. And Berkeley being Berkeley, there was a discussion, and there were two different camps at the Gilman Street Theater. There was one camp of people that were like, we can't fight them. That's what they want. And then there was another camp that was kind of led by Tim Yohannan and Tim Armstrong that was like, why don't we put some bats behind the bass amp? And that one won out. So the Skins showed up that night in mass with a fucking brand new monster truck pickup as red, and they started doing their thing, and they got the bats out, and it turned to a full-on riot. Wow. And the skinheads dispersed, and you had these skinny punk kids with fucking like sticks and pipes and like shit like that, like just like, and the skinheads dispersed. A bunch of them got to the truck. They destroyed that truck.
Yeah.
And the Skins didn't really come back after that. I think
not worth it.
Yeah, I think they decided to stick to the Phoenix Theater because we did kind of something similar in 1997 at a NoFX concert. It started when Fat Mike took his mic stand and bashed a skinhead in the face. Ooh. And it started a riot. And I was into it, man. I had a friend who was a bouncer there. He was really tall. I saw him take a very built, ripped skinhead, lift him over his head, wrestling style, WWF style, and drop him on a fucking windshield.
When Antifa entered the public discourse a few years ago, I feel like they're like, I just knew it as like I knew people who were in Antifa, and it was just like guys I knew who had been beating up skinheads at shows. Right? And now they were just like beating up skinheads in the streets because the skinheads were in the streets. Yeah. And it was like when suddenly people were like, "Oh, Antifa is terrorists." I was like, "You mean Dylan? Like, what are you talking? They're not terrorists."
One of the most.
And this is the least new thing that's happening in the world right now is people being mad and beating up skinheads.
Hey, so Jay Gazes has said, "I love the story when they grew up and beat up the skinheads and." Loves NoFX.
Yeah, I'm a big NoFX fan. I think they're kind of polarizing in punk, but you know what? They're fun. They're fun as shit.
Fun, they're funny, they're talented. If you want to talk about musicianship in the punk world, like
exactly,
they're the creme of the crop.
I mean, yeah, El Jefe.
There are better guitars in punk than NoFX.
El Jefe, and actually, Fat Mike's fucking bass style is different than anybody else's. Like he palm mutes, he does like fucking down picks. Like he's different, and I like that. So, anyways, that's Unity. So we're gonna move on to Jaded, which is
are you before we move on? Are you gonna do The Crowd as one of the ones that you want?
I wasn't gonna do The Crowd.
Well, then maybe just like as an offshoot of Unity, real quick, because I just wanted to throw out there that like The Crowd is my favorite Ivy song.
Okay.
Yeah, I love The Crowd. It's very anthem-y, and it's just like there's something about honestly because the refrain in the chorus is more than just another crowd. We need a gathering instead, and it was a really because it's such a compelling. Like, what exactly do you mean by these terms, and like what exactly that's sort of like the political dimension of Op Ivy for me is all embodied in that line, which is like that this is like what's the difference between just a crowd and a gathering, and like as like a young like kid who didn't want to be a conformist in a crowd.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, but like, so then what is a gathering and what is a community? And like, it's just like, that song might have been what started me a little down the path that ended up with me getting my PhD in English, because it was like, I'm pretty sure I wrote like an essay at some point in high school about the lyrics to that song, and like,
it's a good song. I
just like I just think it dovetails with Unity in terms of like, I wonder how much, because none of these things when I was hearing them years later were attached to the context of that scene.
yeah.
That I only heard about in retrospect once I got there. Like, I didn't know about Gilman until I got there, and it was like, we're gonna play Gilman. I was like, what the fuck is Gilman?
It's a big deal. It's a fucking big deal.
Because the band that I joined was all locals who had grown up in San Rafael, Novato. You know, they were all kids from that area who had grown up with the shadow of Gilman looming, and the explosion of bands like Green Day and AFI and Offspring that had been playing there, who were at their height in the early 2000s, made it this like, you know, this mecca.
Yeah, the crowd. I was considering the crowd. I actually picked Jaded over the crowd because
I mean, they're all good songs.
Yeah. So Jaded, I think the crowd actually dovetails it. So Unity dovetails into the crowd. The crowd dovetails into Jaded. And Jaded is about being jaded about the scene. Right?
Oh.
And I think it's a foreshadowing of the band breaking up. Because and the lyrics okay, so I got the LP right here. And I want to just demonstrate something. Back in my day, you had to walk 6 miles in the snow to buy an album, and then 6 miles back. But what you got was a thing called liner notes for all you kids out there. And this is what came in the thing. It also came with a catalog of lookout bands that you could order via mail. It also has a P.O. box for Op Ivy, Lookout Records, and their promoters, which I love. But Jaded is a song that just, like, I think, in my opinion, the lyrics to it, like, actually rung a little bit more to me than the crowd, because I was a little bit jaded. I was jaded by the time I was 12. Punk rock saved my life because it made me a little less jaded. I was still jaded. And I was jaded for a long time. I was pissed for a long time. And, you know, punk is aggressive. Punk is fast. Punk is fun. But it actually made me less angry. It made me a little less. It gave me a fucking outlet to, like, to not. And it gave me an outlet, and it gave me a community. And it gave me something to be a part of, because I don't think, in my opinion, punk rock isn't just music. Punk rock is I mean, if we're gonna get into it, Taylor Swift is a little punk rock. You know what I mean? Like, it's about being kind of authentic, genuine.
Oh fuck yeah!
True to yourself. Yeah, Kirby is a huge Taylor Swift super fan. But it's about just, I don't know. I'm not going to say selling out, because I don't like the term sell out. You know what I mean? I think it's bullshit. But it's about just being you. It's about a community that accepts you for being you. It's about a community that'll stand behind you when you're a Jewish kid and you get angry every time you see a fucking Nazi salute in a pit. That's what punk rock is. And Jaded, you know, it's, again, it foreshadows their breakup. They became so jaded because, you know, I think they lost that community. I think they lost that, like, they couldn't play those little intimate shows. I mean, I've been to a lot of backyard shows. The vast majority of them get canceled, like shut down after 6 songs. Right. You know, but like in Berkeley at the time, like there were enough.
That's why Op Ivy's songs are so short. We cracked it.
Yeah.
we got 12 songs to play. None of them can be longer than 90 seconds because we've only got 4 minutes before the cops get here.
Green Day too, right? So, but like daytime backyard shows were like the thing back then, and that's what Op Ivy was about. And I think Jaded is just it's
Yeah.
it's really Tim and Jesse kind of like just being like, we don't know, we're young, we don't know, and we don't know if we're gonna continue this. We're a little bit jaded, and and again dovetails into probably Tim's drinking. Like he had this community, he had this thing, and he lost this band. He quit the band. They quit. They called it quits, thinking it was a good idea. But I'm sure he had regrets. You know what I mean? Um, and that's why I picked Jaded over the Crowd. I love the Crowd too. I think you're right, Nick.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting sort of like thought experiment, and it shows the range and the differences of like of their, even though their catalog is relatively small for a band as influential as Historic as them, there's like a lot of really different kinds of stuff that they're tackling, cultural shit that's in their lyrics, and for me, like the part, like you're spoken to very specifically by this like sort of psychological emotional side of that song, and I was interested in the sort of overtly political side of this other song, right? That the Crowd is like, I think I remember I'm remembering that the essay I was writing about the Crowd, I was also writing about the Who's 905. And I think it was about Brave New World. It was that like 11th grade American literature class or whatever, and I was comparing Aldous Huxley to like modern like classic and punk rock, because that was the high school student that I was.
Nick, you are so just too smart for our audience.
Well, I mean, these songs that are about like,
no, I get it, man.
Fitting in versus running away from it, like,
yeah, exactly.
It's almost a cliche, but I think like what's so interesting about the Crowd, and it's so incredible that Operation Ivy was doing this when they were teenagers, like, and not aware of any of it, is like, it's really easy to be like, fuck you, I'm not going to be a conformist, which is like the rallying cry of punk rock for decades. But but to do that at the same time as you're saying, we need a gathering. Like it's not just a fuck you conformity. It's like, actually, well, we need to do this like nuanced different thing in which we can all be together and accept each other, but also not be like just mindless in a mob, right? Like there's something so interesting about that, and the way that ties to this, sort of like mythical scene that existed, that they were attached to, that was like, and what you're saying that's sort of opening this for me a little bit in my, because I don't know that much about this except for having liked the music, is that like, in many ways, it was about the scene first. It seems it
was
for them.
The scene came first.
And not seen in the sense of like, oh, it's just a scene. It's like
it was different.
Just a social world. It's like, it is a community of people that were communicating with each other and being part of an artistic and political and cultural moment. And like, that's what the songs seem to be suggesting. Like, that's what this is really about. Like, the music is just a vehicle for like, for the expression of like our gathering in backyard parties, at collectively owned theaters, at stuff like that. And so like, when you say that, when you hear the like VH1 behind the music story, the biopic version of like, oh, and then the band broke up because they got too successful, like, that's never the part you hear. You hear like the infighting and they hate each other, or the Ramones or whatever, they're fucking each other's girlfriends, like the Spinal Tap of it all, right?
Exactly.
But it seems like for these guys, there was this is a very interesting story that I've never heard anything like that before, where it's like, yeah, the band broke up when they got successful, but it wasn't like the success tore them apart, and it wasn't that they were like, fuck money, we don't want to sell out, and like,
they didn't hate each other either.
All of the sort of like typical cliche ways of understanding like the history of bands, like even if you look at like the decline of Western civilization and a lot of these like iconic versions of telling this story, or like, I've been thinking about SLC Punk a lot while you've been talking, because it really sounds like, I don't know the Salt Lake City scene at all, but like what you're describing with the Phoenix Theater sounds like that might have influenced whatever those guys were working on when they were writing that movie, right?
Absolutely.
Like, there's something very interesting and unique that I'm having trouble getting my finger directly on, but about this idea that it's like there was this community, there was this scene, there was this gathering that wasn't just a crowd, but also it's not, you know, it wasn't individuals either. Like, that seems like
it's a crowd of
interesting.
individuals. I think that's what the crowd says, right? It's a
Mhm.
crowd of individuals. We're all individuals, but we're all part of this sort of community. Okay,
Yeah, and
we're running out of
maybe
time, so I'm going to jump into sound system in a second. Okay, so the last song we're going to discuss is my favorite song ever, Sound System. It is the second song on Energy, and actually the interesting thing, this is again what I love about Op Ivy.
Yeah.
Op Ivy opens with Knowledge, which is a straight
Right.
punk song, right? Also co-written by Billy Joe Armstrong.
Wow. I didn't
and
realize how in it Billy Joe was.
They are very good friends. He also co-wrote Radio. They wrote Radio before Rancid was even a band on Tim's grandmother's porch. But Sound System's actually a lot like Radio. It's a song about music. It's a song about how music can change your fucking day and can change your fucking life. And the lyrics to it are what got me hooked. When I listened to it on that mixtape for the first time, not only did I love that it was like, I like music that has energy.
Yeah.
Not to like be contrite with the name of the LP, but I love energy. I love anything that has a passionate energy, and Sound System fucking has that. It has that, the lyrics to it, the fucking bass line, the guitar. It's a ska song, it's a punk song, it's a funk song, it's almost a Fishbone song.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. And I actually, without being put on the spot, I could probably sing the whole song, but I can't fucking remember any of the fucking lines right now. But I can kind of remember Tim's little rap.
Yeah.
So Tim does a breakdown, and it goes something along the lines of, this is what I remember. Box in my hand, music by my side, skanking to the rhythm of the music on my side. Sound system gonna bring me back up, right? Sound system gonna bring me back up. One thing that I can depend on. Sound system. That's it. That's like that encapsulates how I feel about punk rock and what music does for me. Is I can get in the car, I can put on Sound System, and I won't skip it. I've heard it probably over a million times, and I'll listen to it. I'll sing loud. I'll turn it up in my truck. I will fucking dance to it, like if I'm you know.
Up Ivy is a really good windows down on the freeway on your way to work.
Yeah.
Blow that out before you get into the office and be there in a better mood. Man.
Absolutely. All right, so I was in Chicago a couple weeks ago with my kids, and we did a lot of driving, and we had to drive about 70 miles to where we were staying from Chicago proper. And I put on some, I don't really censor the music I listen to for my kids because I want them to ask me questions, right? I actually like Honora's favorite song is Sidekick by Rancid. And that's fantastic. That's a song about squatters.
Phoenix, my 1-year-old is mostly into Doja Cat, so it's a different side of it right now, but it's also uncensored.
I'll say that Honora's, she loves the Tim Time Bomb acoustic version of it.
Ooh.
But it brought up this like conversation with my 9-year-old daughter about homelessness.
Interesting.
And how people sometimes don't have homes and they have to stay in places, they have to squat. And and the song, this is my favorite part, that one of the reasons why I love that it's her favorite song is it goes, he talks about Wolverine in it too. It's a nerdy song too.
Yeah.
Wolverine got sad, made him mad. Every single cop caught a bullet in the head.
Right.
and I love hearing my daughter sing that. It also brought up the point of like, okay, cops are great. If you have trouble, go find a cop. But you know what? Be careful. You know?
Yeah.
But I was listening to Sound System with them, and I was explaining to Honora, I was explaining to Judah about like what music means to me and what the song's about. And they, they like to hear. They don't like to hear me sing it, but they like to hear me talk about it. And like, and God bless Honora. She's so smart. She was like, so it's like when I get home from school, like music can like help me kind of feel better. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Like,
She gets
and
it.
she gets it. And again, I love that her favorite song is Sidekick. It's such a good song. It's such a fucking, yeah. She also likes radio. I've explained radio
Yeah,
to her.
I learned a lot of these kinds of. I learned what vigilantism was from.
That's right. That's
that song,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so this was before Google, and it was like you had to learn. No one was if no one was going to teach it to you in school, you had to learn it from punk rock lyrics.
Exactly, or look it up in the dictionary. But
Yeah.
what is it? My name is Tim. I'm a lesser known sidekick. Or what's the first
I had a
part?
dream I was a vigilante sidekick. My name is Tim. I'm a lesser known
character. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a good song. But yeah, so just back to Sound System. It's funky. It's a dance song. It is a song that I play for every girlfriend I've had. And again, I can actually listen to the whole LP all the way through still.
Oh yeah.
And fucking love it. And I am also okay. So we got to wrap it up. But I'll just say, like, I love Operation Ivy Rarities. There's a reason that I use YouTube, YouTube proper, not YouTube Music. If you want to check out some great Operation Ivy Rarities or live stuff, there's an album called CD, which is a bunch of, I think it's a collection of all their EPs. There's an album called Unreleased Energy, which has a great version of Unity with horns.
Yeah, I was listening to that also just before this because you sent it to me, and I had never heard it before, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool."
It's good. It's good. And then look up Lint Rides again. It's their last show, quote unquote last show. It's a mess, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And if you listen to any of their live stuff, they rip on this band Iconochrist. Watch Turn It Around, the story of East Bay punk. It is an amazing documentary. It was a lot of the source material for this came from that. Came from my rapidly fading memory. Came from just the songs. It came from my time at Warner Brothers. It came from, like, I learned how to play guitar from Tim Armstrong. I listened to the songs. For the last 20 minutes, I've been trying to figure out Bombshell. It is 3 chords, and I know the chords, but I can't remember the fucking order. But it's like bow, 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 bow. But I love the idea that this is the other thing about punk rock. You don't have to be a fucking musical like genius. You don't have to be. You don't even have to be punk rock. Jesse described himself as a spaz. Like, you can just start a band, find some friends, play some music. It doesn't matter if you're a fucking teenager or you're 40.
Yeah. Well, I guess it helps if you're a bunch of musical savant geniuses at the heart of a scene.
All right. Yes. Okay. Let's just say Sewer Trout, right?
Yeah.
Not the best musicians. Wrote very funny lyrics, mostly about drinking beer.
That works too.
That's a band, man. That's a band, and that's punk rock. And I think that's where we're gonna stop it. We're at 100. We're an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We should mention.
We mentioned the time we tried to start a band, but it was just going to be like I was going to play guitar and you were going to play Vicodin.
I know.
It didn't
Oh
work.
my god! Do you remember
We
Do you
covered
remember?
No Effects' linoleum.
Do you remember the pig amp
Yeah. Yeah.
and the party?
No, what party? Oh my god, the New Year's party.
Hey
Yes.
guys, I'm gonna jump here and do some announcements.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
This is the right time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey everybody, bravo, great job on the podcast. Josh agrees. Well, he said this
I'm.
was a great
I'm.
podcast. Bravo guys, can't wait to post it.
I can't. I'm Josh. I just shout out to you. I'm glad you're alive.
Yeah, buddy. Feel better. You're
Yeah.
you're in our prayers tonight.
Absolutely.
Um, if you guys enjoyed this, we will be bringing it to you live every other Sunday. We are so punk that we don't have a fucking time. So I'd say look for us somewhere in the afternoon and the nighttime.
Yeah.
You'll see my little Twitch channel thing pop up, and then we'll usually record for about an hour and a half. When that happens, we'll leave the episode up for about the night. We're gonna pull it down tomorrow. The next Friday, though, we will be posting the raw and unedited version on YouTube, as well as the edited version on all the podcast channels out there. That
Yeah.
includes Apple, Spotify, and all those random ass ones that people like to listen. We are on everything, folks.
Yes.
Next week, next Sunday, we're going to bring you another episode of the Stone Gauntlet. It is going to be based off light side lightsabers and outside of canon lightsabers. And we hope to see you there. You guys want to say goodbye to anybody?
Yeah. I just want to shout out Lindsay, Nick's wife. Is an amazing musician, an amazing singer. I wish she had a chance to just say hi, but she's got the baby. I want to shout out to Nick's father-in-law, and Tim Armstrong. Man, I tagged you in my Instagram post. I hope you read my Instagram post and listen to a song I wrote for this podcast that will someday get played on the podcast. It's 6 chords, so it's more complicated than a Ramones song. So
And I'll just say a big thank you to Josh's appendix for being the reason why I ended up here today.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Nick was a last minute addition, and I am. You know what? Josh is going to be great on this when he gets better.
It was really good news because you texted me, "Hey, not life or death, but urgent." And so I called you, being like, "What? Oh no, what's wrong?" And you were like, "Hey, can you do a podcast?"
Honestly, Nick, if
Yes.
you're available every other Sunday, you, Josh, and Max would be a great podcasting team.
I might be able to pop back in.
Yeah, let's see it. Well, it's a rotating cast. I will hit you up. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Can I say hail Satan real quick? Hail Satan.
All right. All right. We're gonna go ahead and shut down the podcast, guys. In the
I
stream,
got banned from Twitch.
and and we'll see you next Sunday.
Yeah, hey, let's see if I have a Twitch account next Sunday, guys. We'll find out.
Oh yeah, he gets banned like every other weekend. Fun.
I don't get it. I don't even use it.